Hi, welcome to Far From Eden. It is Sunday, and on Sunday we have a sort of a tradition we've got around here, and we read a fairy tale from Grimm Brothers. Actually, this is called Grimm's Fairy Tales, I think, because we're missing part of it right here. The reason for this, if you're new here, is that constantly being on a search for what is true, good, and beautiful, I think is important when you're trying to understand the mess that we're in, how we got here, and if we're ever getting out of it, as far as how men and women deal with each other. And I really think we've gotten so far disconnected from how it was supposed to be. We're pretty disordered, as it were. And reading old poetry, old stories, and it really illuminates truth and things that people used to know, things we all took for granted, that we all understood and we all knew. And we've been told through school and everything and believed that, oh, we know more now. Now we're so much smarter. We know about science and everything. And the older I get, and I've said this in a lot of videos, the more I think the Amish actually have known really what's up the whole time. They knew not to get themselves dependent on a grid, on electricity, on any of those things that they couldn't do themselves between their family, their community, and God. So anyway, on that note, and real quick before we get started, I just want to share with you guys, I know that I told some of you in one of the recent chats that I had ordered this. I ordered Rachel Wilson's book. It came a day early. I'm super excited. Occult Feminism, The Secret History of Women's Liberation, because it has its roots there. So that I am very excited to read. I'm thinking about actually reading it with you guys. It is a relatively small book. And I thought, well, what if I read it? So I don't know, with you guys, and then reacted to it. And then that's another place that this information is getting out, because it's very important that we know from where all this comes. Because again, where the the origins of feminism people aren't aware of, and also the origins of our society. So I think understanding the past is super important, as George Orwell put it, and I'm going to, loosely quote, "He who controls the past controls the present, and he who controls the present controls the future." So without further ado, one of the stories we have not done yet for the Grimm brothers is a classic that I don't think Disney has touched. I can kind of understand why. Hansel and Gretel. And it's a story that, for me anyway, Gen X, it's a story you always knew. And it's just sort of like, I don't even remember like it being read to me. I just seem to always have known it. And I started thinking, well, we haven't done this one. I wasn't drawn to it because it didn't have a princess. And I thought, well, this doesn't have obvious gender roles or things like that. But I thought, these books have surprised me and all of us. I mean, so I thought, well, what do I know? I don't even remember. The moral of the story of Hansel and Gretel that I remember was like, don't talk to strangers and don't go off. Like, that was it. And I thought that could possibly be the only thing in there. But from what I've learned doing this with you guys is that there's probably some things in here in this old story that we always knew that we've forgotten. And if you're new here, if this is your first fairy tale day, my book is from the 1930s. So there are definitely older versions which are more based because they're pre-20th century. So the further back you go, it seems the closer to the truth you get, which is interesting because that would mean the further forward we go. Anyway, Hansel and Gretel. Once upon a time, there dwelt near a large wood a poor woodcutter with his wife and 2 children by his former marriage. A little boy called Hansel, and I want to say it the German way, but I don't know how to pronounce things in German, so I'll just mess it up. So, a boy called Hansel and a girl named Gretel. He had little enough to break or bite, and once, when there was a great famine in the land, he could not procure even his daily bread. And as he lay thinking in his bed one evening, rolling about for trouble, he sighed and said to his wife, "What will become of us? How can we feed our children when we have no more than we can eat ourselves?" Let me just point out that we are already dealing with a stepmother, and if you are new to fairy tales, you wouldn't know that you should be very nervous when there is a stepmother in the story. And right away, it's like the very first sentence. She is not the mother of these children. We had that with the boy bird from the almond tree, aka the juniper tree. "No, then, my husband," answered she, we will lead them away quite early in the morning into the thickest part of the wood, and there make them a fire, and give them each a little piece of bread. Then we will go to our work and leave them alone, so they will not find the way home again, and we shall be freed from them." "No, wife," replied he, "that I can never do. How can you bring your heart to leave my children alone in the wood? For the wild beasts will soon come and tear them to pieces." I am so glad I decided to read this one. I don't remember any of this. Wow. I'm sorry for those of you who fall asleep to when I'm reading fairy tales, because I'm getting a little too excited right now. What? This stepmom's like, "Hey, no worries. I know what we'll do." "Oh, you simpleton," said she. "Then we must all four die of hunger. You had better plane the coffins for us." But she left him no peace till he consented, saying, "Ah, but I shall regret the poor children." Don't give in, guy. The two children, however, had not gone to sleep for very hunger, and so they overheard what the stepmother said to their father. Gretel wept bitterly and said to Hansel, "What will become of us?" "Be quiet, Gretel," said he. "Do not cry. I will soon help you." And as soon as their parents had fallen asleep, that woman is not their parents. And as soon as their parents had fallen asleep, he got up, put on his coat, and unbarring the back door, slipped out. The moon shone brightly, and the white pebbles which lay before the door seemed like silver pieces. They glittered so brightly. Hansel stooped down and put as many into his pocket as it would hold. And then, going back, he said to Gretel, "Be comforted, dear sister, and sleep in peace. God will not forsake us." And so saying, he went to bed again. Hansel's a fine young man, isn't he? The next morning, before the sun arose, the wife went and awoke the two children. "Get up, you lazy things. We are going into the forest to chop wood." Then she gave them each a piece of bread, saying, "This is something for your dinner. Do not eat it before the time, for you will get nothing else." Gretel took the bread in her apron, for Hansel's pocket was full of pebbles, and so they all set out upon their way. When they had gone a little distance, Hansel stood still and peeped back at the house, and this he repeated several times, till his father said, "Hansel, what are you peeping at, and why do you lag behind? Take care, and remember your legs." "Ah, father," said Hansel, "I am looking at my white cat sitting upon the roof of the house, trying to say goodbye." "You simpleton," said the wife. "That is not a cat. It is only the sun shining on the white chimney." But in reality, Hansel was not looking at a cat, but every time he stopped, he dropped a pebble out of his pocket upon the path. When they came to the middle of the wood, the father told the children to collect wood, and he would make them a fire so that they should not be cold. So Hansel and Gretel gathered together quite a little mountain of twigs. Then they set fire to them, and as the flame burnt up high, the wife said, "Now you children, lie down near the fire and rest yourselves, whilst we go into the forest and chop wood. When we are ready, I will come and call you." Hansel and Gretel sat down by the fire, and when it was noon, each ate the piece of bread, and because they could hear the blows of an axe, they thought their father was near. But it was not an axe, but a branch which he had bound to a withered tree, so as to be blown to and fro by the wind. They waited so long that at last their eyes closed from weariness, and they fell fast asleep. When they awoke, it was quite dark, and Gretel began to cry. "How shall we get out of the wood?" But Hansel tried to comfort her by saying, "Wait a little while the moon rises, and then we will quickly find the way." The moon soon shone forth, and Hansel, taking his sister's hand, followed the pebbles, which glittered like new coined silver pieces, and showed them the path. All night long they walked on, and as day broke, they came to their father's house. They knocked at the door, and when the wife opened it and saw Hansel and Gretel, she exclaimed, "You wicked children, why did you sleep so long in the wood? We thought you were never coming home again." But their father was very glad, for it had grieved his heart to leave them all alone. Notice she's just going to blame the kids, like, "You left them there on purpose, lady, and now you're going to shift the blame because you don't know they're onto you." Not long afterwards, there was again great scarcity in every corner of the land, and one night the children overheard their mother saying to their father, "Everything is again consumed. We have only half a loaf left, and then the song is ended. The children must be sent away. We will take them deeper into the wood so that they may not find the way out again. It is the only means of escape for us." But her husband felt heavy at heart and thought it was better to share the last crust with the children. Yeah. His wife, however, would listen to nothing that he said, and scolded and reproached him without end. Yeah. Wow, that's not very different, is it, than what goes on today? Except that here, it's clearly not supposed to be okay. And in society now, well, it's the men who have the problem. Not really, being sarcastic, obviously. He who says A must say B too, and he who consents the first time must also the second. Okay, that's the dad's logic, I guess. The children, however, had heard the conversation as they lay awake, and as soon as the old people went to sleep, Hansel got up, intending to pick up some pebbles as before, but the wife had locked the door so that he could not get out. Nevertheless, he comforted Gretel, saying, "Do not cry, sleep in quiet, and good God will not forsake us." Early in the morning, the stepmother came and pulled them out of bed and gave them each a slice of bread, which was still smaller than the former piece. On the way, Hansel broke his in his pocket, and stooping every now and then, dropped a crumb upon the path. "Hansel, why do you stop and look about?" said the father. "Keep in the path. I am looking at my little dove," answered Hansel, nodding a goodbye to me. Answered Hansel, nodding a goodbye to me. "Simpleton," said the wife. That's her favorite word. She loves to do that, doesn't she? "That is no dove, but only the sun shining on the chimney." But Hansel kept still dropping crumbs as he went along. The mother led the children deep into the wood, where they had never been before. And there, making an immense fire, she said to them, "Sit down here and rest, and when you feel tired, you can sleep for a little while. We are going into the forest, to hew wood, and in the evening, when we are ready, we will come and fetch you." When noon came, Gretel shared her bread with Hansel, who had strewn his on the path. Then they went to sleep, but the evening arrived and no one came to visit the poor children, and in the dark night they awoke, and Hansel comforted his sister by saying, "Only wait, Gretel, till the moon comes out. Then we shall see the crumbs of bread which I have dropped, and they will show us the way home." The moon shone, and they got up, but they could not see any crumbs, for the thousands of birds which had been flying about in the woods and fields had picked them all up. Hansel kept saying to Gretel, "We will soon find the way." But they did not, and they walked the whole night long and the next day, but still they did not come out of the wood. And they got so hungry, for they had nothing to eat but the berries which they found upon the bushes. Soon they got so tired that they could not drag themselves along, so they lay down under a tree and went to sleep. It was now the third morning since they had left their father's house, and they still walked on, but they only got deeper and deeper into the wood. And Hansel saw that if help did not come very soon, they would die of hunger. As soon as it was noon, they saw a beautiful snow-white bird sitting upon a bough, which sang so sweetly that they stood still and listened to it. It soon left off, and spreading its wings flew off, and they followed it until it arrived at a cottage, upon the roof of which it had perched. And when they went close up to it, they saw that the cottage was made of bread and cakes, and the window panes were of clear sugar. "We will go in there," said Hansel, "and have a glorious feast. I will eat a piece of the roof, and you can eat the window. Will they not be sweet?" So Hansel reached up and broke a piece off the roof in order to see how it tasted, while Gretel stepped up to the window and began to bite it. Then a sweet voice called out of the room, "Tip-tap, tip-tap, who raps at my door?" And the children answered, "The wind, the child of heaven." And they went on eating without interruption. What? Hansel thought the roof tasted very nice, and so he tore off a great piece while Gretel broke a large round pane out of the window and sat down quite contentedly. Just then the door opened and a very old woman, walking upon crutches, came out. Hansel and Gretel were so frightened that they were so frightened that they let fall what they had in their hands. But the old woman, nodding her head, said, "Ah, you dear children, what has brought you here? Come in and stop with me, and no harm shall befall you." And so saying, she took them both by the hand and led them into her cottage. A good meal of milk and pancakes with sugar, apples, and nuts was spread on the table, and in the back room were two nice little beds covered with white, where Hansel and Gretel laid themselves down and thought themselves in heaven. The old woman behaved very kindly to them, but in reality, she was a wicked witch who waylaid children and built the bread house in order to entice them in. But as soon as they were in her power, she killed them, cooked and ate them, and made a great festival of the day. Witches have red eyes and cannot see very far, but they have a fine sense of smelling, like wild beasts, so that they know when children approach them. When Hansel and Gretel came near the witch's house, she laughed wickedly, saying, "Here come two who shall not escape me." And early in the morning, before they awoke, she went up to them and saw how lovingly they lay sleeping, with their chubby red cheeks, and she mumbled to herself, "That will be a good bite." Ew. Then she took up Hansel with her rough hand and shut him up in a little cage with a lattice door. And although he screamed loudly, it was of no use. Gretel came next and shaking her till she awoke, she said, "Get up, you lazy thing, and fetch some water to cook something good for your brother, who must remain in that stall and get fat. When he is fat enough, I shall eat him." Gretel began to cry, but it was all useless, for the old witch made her do as she wished. So a nice meal was cooked for Hansel, but Gretel got nothing else but a crab's claw. Why is just Hansel? That's not how I remember the story at all. It was both of them. Interesting. Okay. It's always interesting when it definitely veers off what we learned, because that's when you know, oh, they were trying to hide something from us. Oh. Okay, so Gretel gets a crab's claw. Every morning, the old witch came to the cage and said, "Hansel, stretch out your finger that I may feel whether you are getting fat." But Hansel used to stretch out a bone, and the old woman, having very bad sight, thought it was his finger, and wondered very much that he did not get more fat. When 4 weeks had passed and Hansel still kept quite lean, she lost all her patience and would not wait any longer. "Gretel," she called out in a passion, "get some water quickly. Be Hansel fat or lean, this morning I will kill and cook him." Oh, how the poor little sister grieved as she was forced to fetch the water, and fast the tears ran down her cheeks. "Dear good God, help us now," she exclaimed. "Had we only been eaten by the wild beasts in the wood, then we should have died together." Aww. But the old witch called out, "Leave off that noise. It will not help you a bit." So early in the morning, Gretel was forced to go out and fill the kettle and make a fire. "First, we will bake. However," said the old woman, "I have already heated the oven and kneaded the dough." And so saying, she pushed poor Gretel up to the oven, out of which the flames were burning fiercely. "Creep in," said the witch, "and see if it is hot enough, and then we will put in the bread." But she intended, when Gretel got in, to shut up the oven and let her bake, so that she might eat her as well as Hansel. Gretel perceived what her thoughts were and said, "I do not know how to do it. How shall I get in?" "You stupid goose," said she. "The opening is big enough. See, I could even get in myself." And she got up and put her head into the oven. Then Gretel gave her a push so that she fell right in. Then shutting the iron door, she bolted it. Oh, how horribly she howled! But Gretel ran away and left the ungodly witch to burn to ashes. Now she ran to Hansel and opening his door, called out, "Hansel, we are saved. The old witch is dead." So he sprang out like a bird out of his cage when the door is opened. And they were so glad that they fell upon each other's necks and kissed each other over and over again. And now, as there was nothing to fear, they went into the witch's house, where in every corner were caskets full of pearls and precious stones. "These are better than pebbles," said Hansel, putting as many into his pocket as he could hold. While Gretel thought, "I will take some home too," and filled her apron full. "We must be off now," said Hansel, and get out of this enchanted forest." But when they had walked for 2 hours, they came to a large piece of water. "We cannot get over," said Hansel. "I can see no bridge at all." "And there is no boat either," said Gretel. "But there swims a white duck. I will ask her to help us over." And she sang, "Little duck, good little duck, Gretel and Hansel, here we stand. There is neither stile nor bridge, take us on your back to land." So the duck came to them, and Hansel sat himself on and bade his sister sit behind him. "No," answered Gretel, "that will be too much for the duck. She shall take us over one at a time." This the good little bird did, and when both were happily arrived on the other side, and had gone a little way, they came to a well-known wood, which they knew the better every step they went, and at last they perceived their father's house. Then they began to run, and bursting into the house, they fell on their father's neck. He had not had one happy hour since he had left the children in the forest, and his wife was dead. Gretel shook her apron, and the pearls and precious stones rolled out upon the floor, and Hansel threw down one handful after the other out of his pocket. Then all their sorrows were ended, and they lived together in great happiness. My tale is done. There runs a mouse. Whoever catches her may make a great, great cap out of her fur. That's the end. Like, that is the end, that little thing about the, okay, let's go back to where it was like, by the way, the wife was dead. Okay, where is it? Because it wasn't even its own sentence. It was just like semicolon. Let's see, hold on, where is it? So the duck carried them one at a time over, which, Gretel it was very good. She's like, no, you go first, I'll go next. They were very good to each other, brothers and sisters, weren't they? They worked together very well. They began to run, bursting into the house. They fell on their father's neck. He had not had one happy hour since he had left the children in the forest, and his wife was dead. Was that part of the reason he had not had a happy hour? Or, like, don't you kind of want to know, well, how did that happen? But that's okay. The important thing is the kids are good. They survived their stepmother's, attempt at ending them. And they worked together, didn't they? Hansel, the boy, he was definitely a leader. He told Gretel not to cry. He made plans to try to get back. The second time his plan didn't work, you didn't hear Gretel get angry. She didn't yell. She certainly didn't call him a simpleton, did she? No. And when he was captured, right, Gretel was the one who pushed the witch into the oven, ending up saving him. Because yes, women do have jobs to do. It's not that women shouldn't, contribute. 100% they should. This soft life thing, no. Gretel, she was a little girl, clearly younger than Hansel, her brother, and he had saved them the first time with his pebbles that glowed in the moonlight. And Gretel saved them the second time. And they saved each other. And I think it was good. I see the boy being more of a male role, and the little girl being more of a female role. Wow. Certainly there wasn't a duck in a pond, and I kept thinking about, their mother who had passed away, and the fact that there was a duck that had helped them. And was it a duck? Yeah, it was a duck. Yeah, that's it's better. And this one definitely talked more about witches are like this. Don't you also think it's interesting that witches in all these old stories hate children and want to end them and deceive them? Because the witch had, her house was set up to deceive them. It was everything that kids would love. That's what Satan does. That's the temptation, right? Wow. I'm so glad you guys read this with me. That was very good. I do feel like this feeds my soul. Like at the end, I feel very satisfied. Like, like grounding, like we have just touched, it's a touchstone, right? With what's true and the dangers and the things we used to know. Also, in this fairy tale, as in I think all the other ones we've read, there's always a reference to God. There's always a reference. There's always a reference to, faith and being pious. There's been a lot of being pious. And once again, we have a stepmother. I would say there was more than one witch. I mean, maybe the stepmother was the witch in some shape-shifting way, because it's weird. They were both gone. That's odd. Anyway, you guys always have such great insights about the meanings and definitely stuff that I miss. So I look forward to the chat and what you guys think and what you remember from Hansel and Gretel, what some of the older, because a couple of you have access to older versions of the story than I do. And so those are always interesting. When you told me that the boy from the almond tree, aka the juniper tree, was in the stew. Yeah, even in mine, because mine was 20th century, he was not in the stew in mine. So I wonder what else might be in there that was taken out. So anyways, thank you guys for joining me and for liking these fairy tales as much as I do. I'm really grateful. And I will do what you guys asked and book report on this one. Maybe I might be subjecting you to it more than that. So I don't think that it can be too much, this sort of content of truth, and because we just don't see truth very much anymore. I feel like you have to really sift through the garbage to find it. So anyway, I hope that you have found a way to feed your soul today. I know I think of it more now since I tell you, because it's important for me too. So on Sunday, I have kept the thing where now I'm going to wear a dress, even if I don't go to any of the churches because they're so woke. It doesn't mean that I can't observe, right? And make it special. And being female, that's a little something. It's wearing a dress. It's a little things. So take care of yourselves, okay? And I will see you guys on the next one.